Hugh Bonneville, welcome to the Globe.
Oh,
Isn't this just heaven?
beautiful.
Does it? I feel we need a line of Romeo and Juliet. Something looking over.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
You've become globally famous. There isn't, kind of a household in America that doesn't know you, of course, for Downton Abbey. You, Notting Hill, for television and cinema. But you started out in theatre. Do you miss it? Would you like to go back?
Yes, absolutely.
When you kind of potter around backstage, you're getting that little pitter-patter of...
I know, definitely. The, the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. No, I love it. It sounds a cliche, but it is my home. It's where I started, and it's all I ever wanted to do was be in theatre. I never thought I'd be on screen. I thought, in my sort of weird teenage, early 20s brain, that screen acting was something that was over there, and that's what Americans did brilliantly, and theatre was a sort of British, tradition, and that's where I felt at home. So I feel I love being on stage. I love being in a live environment. I haven't been on stage actually for a couple of years now, 5 years probably. But I'm looking forward to going back and doing some more because it's live, and you have a control over the performance, which you don't on screen.
Is it true that thing people always say about how you feel the audience when you're on stage? Like you can feel whether they're paying attention or slightly looking at their watches thinking, am I going to make the last train home?
Yeah.
You can?
Totally. I did it. The last play I did was a beautiful play by Bill Nicholson called Shadowlands, which is a movie with Deborah Winger and Tony Hopkins about C.S. Lewis and his late flowering love. And it's shot through with great wit and humour about this very closed-off man who finds love late in life, and then she dies. And it's really a story about the question that he asks at the beginning of the play is, if God is love, why does he allow suffering? And C.S. Lewis has to come to terms with that. And the final scene, when C.S. Lewis finally breaks down in front of his late wife's son, is very, very, very moving. And I have to say that there's a quality of silence when you get it right, and to hear 800, 1,000 people just going completely quiet as this man goes through what he's going through. It's very special. It's very special, as is a huge woofer of a laugh, and you can't get that. I mean, you can get it in a movie theatre if you all go. Please, never stop going to movie theatres. But we do become. We have become, particularly since the pandemic, and we all bought bigger TVs and we sit at home with our popcorn. We think, why would we go out and share an experience? But there is a hunger for the live experience, and long may it last.
Could we see you in Shakespeare again?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I don't know what, but
any roles you'd love to play?
Well, I think it's time for my Romeo, don't you?
I hate to say this, Hugh. Maybe a little old for Romeo. I mean,
well, listen, Ian McKellen played Hamlet.
I don't want to be your director saying, God forbid. I'm sure the makeup artist could do a great job.
Well, I think if Ian McKellen can play Hamlet at 83, then
you could damn well play Romeo.
I could damn well play Romeo. Might need a sort of a truss or something. But
okay, I think we should go downstairs. But wait, can we do it? Can you manage this? Okay. Romeo and Juliet, the balcony scene, for one night and one night only, brought to you by Hugh Bonneville and Catty Kay.
Oh gosh, I haven't done this for I don't know how many years.
This is your challenge.
1982, I think I did this. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. That's all you're getting.
I mean, that's all I have to say.
She speaks, but not to me.
Okay, applause.
I think we've got.
We nailed it.
We've got the role.
One take and one take only. You grew up quite shy as a child. Acting doesn't seem like the obvious career.
I know a lot of people who are sort of shy or introverted in some ways and find a release on stage or in character. I think that's certainly a characteristic of mine. I was the youngest of three. My sister was 6 years older, so I wasn't alone, or I mean, sorry, I wasn't lonely, but I was alone because they were, they were at boarding school, so I did have to make my own entertainment. Really, I didn't have them, chasing me around the garden and pinching me. So the dressing up box became my friend, and the world of the imagination.
And you had a lodger who was an actor.
Well, that's right.
Did that
yeah,
inspire you?
definitely. There was an actor called Michael Bates, who my parents had known just from as a neighbour when they used to live in South West London, and we were living South East London now. And the Greenwich Theatre was our local theatre. And Michael came to lodge for a few nights or a week or so while they were getting the play up and running. And I just thought he was the bloke who, had a boiled egg at breakfast. And then one night my dad said, should we go and pick Michael up from the theatre? And I was very excited because it meant staying up past my bedtime. I was probably 7 or 8. And I can remember going to the Greenwich Theatre and creeping into the back of the stalls, and there was our lodger on stage, and it was a play called Forget-Me-Not Lane by Peter Nichols. And it was the final scene, and I can't remember whether it was a funny scene or a pin drop silent scene, but whatever. He and his colleagues were telling this story in the dark and had 300, 400 people in the palm of their hands, and I was absolutely captivated. The next morning, I just stared at him at breakfast. I was completely mesmerised. Forget the egg and the
He was the
toast.
god
He was a
who ate an
god.
egg.
Yeah, he was God who ate an egg, and I looked at him a completely different way. That he and his colleagues had this extraordinary impact on a shared experience in a room like this, And that really, I can remember it vividly. So that was a proper influence.
The characters that you've played, and that you've particularly become well known for in America, I guess it was Downton Abbey, so let's talk about that kind of catapulted you. I and some friends spent every Sunday night for about 4 series of Downton Abbey having dinner together, watching. And our kids, there were sort of 6 kids, and we would go from house to house. We always liked it when we went to our Italian friends, the food was better. And we would sit and watch Downton Abbey, and almost everyone I knew was having a similar experience. And I remember the first time I met you was at the State Department. I went to you and said, Hugh, do you realise how big it is here? It was just when it was exploding. You said, I don't know why, it's just a posh soap.
Which it is, and I mean that as a compliment to it. Julian Fellowes was a big fan of Coronation Street, which is one of the longest running soaps in the world, I think, hugely popular still in Britain. And he was a big fan of The West Wing and scenes that, or rather shows that have tremendous pace to them, and short scenes often, usually. And that was one of the characteristics of Downton, that it had this sort of breakneck pace to it, or rather, if you got bored of one character, there was another one coming along in about 25 seconds. So it did have that soap element. And certainly for most of the show, you could say that it was about, for example, tension, not violence, romance, not sex. You could sit down with your granny, and with your grandchild and watch it. And that sense of crossing the generations was something that really, I think, took, why the show took off, that it was became a family experience, as you say.
The other movie, I guess, that I knew you for first, and that I think Americans did as well, was Notting Hill. Talking of rather bumbling British characters, but I have to say I love Bernie. And for me, he stole the movie. I mean, Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, but you had those short scenes where you took the film away. Was that film for you a kind of breakout moment as well? We talked about Downton Abbey, but I imagine that at Notting Hill and what you did with that role.
Notting Hill was a wonderful experience, I have to say. It was my first sort of decent part in a film. All of us had much bigger parts, and they ended up on the cutting room floor in order to put the money on the screen, Hugh and Julia, understandably. But we had it was a beautifully written script and really fun to do, and with nice people, and we had a laugh. And I was in a big budget movie for the first time, and so what's not to like? I learned a lot on that film. For instance, if you're going to do a dining room scene, be careful what you eat on the wide shot, because you've got to eat it on every other angle. And we're doing, as you may recall, there's who's going to eat the last brownie. And
at the end of the dinner party.
At the end of the dinner party,
right,
there's a whole brownie sequence, and I, like a mug, at 8 a.m. ate 2 brownies on the wide shot, and so there are about 8 other angles, that day, and I ended up having to eat these bloody brownies. And I swear to God, I went out for dinner that night at a friend's house, and they served brownies, and I sort of virtually threw up. So I learnt that trick of the trade. Don't eat unless you have to.
What was it like working with a kind of real celeb? The first time Julia Roberts was mega. Still is mega, but was mega when you worked with her.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it kind of daunting, scary? Did you have normal human reactions, or?
Well, it's quite funny because these are the days when
whatever,
yeah.
a celeb.
Well, I can remember we were rehearsing in this freezing cold church hall in Notting Hill, literally with a sort of gas heater here, and we were all huddled round. And it's the days when there was a lot more smoking going on, so we'd all be puffing away, and Roger Michel, the director, and with ashtrays. This is before Julia arrived, so we had 2 or 3 days, I think, before she arrived. And then literally on the day she arrived, everyone stopped smoking. Suddenly there was no, and she came in. I remember her coming in and saying, hi, and she was wearing, jeans and a t-shirt. I thought, A, she's stunning, of course, she's got this amazing radiance about her, but also she's just completely normal, she's one of us. And first thing she said was, anyone have a cigarette? So out came 5 packets of Silk Cut. Well, that's sort of what the film's about, isn't it, really, in a way, Notting Hill? It's about that notion of, normality and celebrity. Yeah. And the trappings that come with it, good and bad, to do with being in the public eye. It's a tricky one.
And you've now been in the public eye. I mean, it must be that was kind of like you say about the trappings of. Do you have moments where you think, oh God, I just want to be anonymous and?
Yeah, I do.
It's hard for you to walk around.
Yeah, all I ever wanted was to be. Frankly, all I ever wanted was to be on stage. I never thought I'd be on telly, or indeed in a film, or be in the public eye in that way. So it is a strange thing. It's a strange thing when you're in a restaurant and you're aware that someone's taking pictures of you, and you think, well, can I just finish my meal? And people always say, I'm sorry, I don't normally do this. You think, well, there's 2 lies straight away. You're not sorry, and you do this, and I am in the middle of a meal, and can I just finish my meal, and then we'll have a picture outside or something like that. So I think the world of the camera phone and all that has changed things a lot.
Have you ever thought of playing an American? Can I hear you?
No.
Go on.
No, I'm too self-conscious now.
Please,
I've got
please.
proper. He can do it. No, I can't. I can't.
I bet you can.
No, I can with a bit of study, but I'm too self-conscious now. But we did do once on, I think it was Stephen Colbert, we were doing, 3 of us went on, three of us from Downton went on, and he gave us the script, and we had to do the characters in American accents, which was quite funny. So reading Robert as an American.
I can't do it. My kids are both British and American. And when they're with their American friends, they only speak American, and when they're with us, they speak British, and they can't switch. So if they were with us, they couldn't speak American.
That's interesting. That's very
They
interesting.
don't know how to...
Yeah.
It's a language that it's an accent that belongs to certain circumstances in their life. So I can see why you can't suddenly turn it on.
No, I should be able to.
Even though you did a very good Romeo.
No, I'm not falling for it. I'm not going to do it.
Romeo in American?
Yeah. But soft, light through yonder window breaks.
He did it. A bit like some of your characters, and I'm thinking, I guess, of Bernie, particularly in Notting Hill. You're one of the most self-deprecating people I know, in real life and on screen. But so I'm sort of almost not sure if I can ask this question, but what is it that makes you such a good actor?
I'm a good listener. Acting is about listening, I think. And there's a Michael Caine story. And there's a lovely thing on YouTube which I recommend to every young actor to watch. It's a masterclass he did probably 30 years ago now, and in it he talks about when he was on stage at the Royal Court Theatre in London, in his early career, and he had no lines or whatever. I think he was playing a policeman or something, standing at the back of the stage while the interview took place with the copper and the bad guy. And at one point, the director said to him during rehearsals, he said, "What are you doing, Michael?" He said, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I haven't got anything to say." And he said, "No, you've got loads to say. You've got the world of stuff you could talk about, but you choose not to." So in other words, keep it alive. Keep the thoughts alive, even if you have got a smallish part. And actually, Julian Fellowes brought that up at the read-through of the very first episode of Downton Abbey. He said, "Go and watch Gosford Park and look at Sophie Thompson. She hasn't got a lot of lines, but she's absolutely present in every single scene, and you absolutely are inside the head of that character," which was a very good note. So it's about being present. It's about being and as I say, listening and reacting. It's not just about how many lines you've got.
Is it that what you wanted from it when you were a child and you went and saw that lodger? Is it what you've got from it? That sense of being able to captivate an audience?
Yeah, I think probably the happiest 4 days in my career were when at the Royal Shakespeare Company, the 4 plays that we'd rehearsed over the period of several months finally came on stream together. And that thrill of being with the same company of people, pretty much the same company, with a different audience every day, with a different wonderful play, that was thrilling, and I loved that. So that element of doing what I used to do, as a kid with the dressing up box, doing it and being paid for it, is a wonderful feeling.
We had something to show you. This is a kind of this is your life, Hugh Bonneville moment.
Oh my gosh, what? Ah! Okay, so that is my very first professional job. I had understudied Ralph Fiennes as Lysander in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Then we went on tour around Europe, and I got promoted to play Lysander because he was playing Oberon. And so this is my Hermia. Beverly Hills was her name. She changed her name from Beverly Williams to Beverly Hills. And Carolyn Backhouse, and this is an actor called Ben Cole.
Actually, you changed your name from Williams.
I did, you're quite right, yeah, but not to
Bonneville.
Hills.
Not Hills,
not to
no.
Beverly Hills.
No.
Because
maybe that was aspirations.
So that was that's taken in Munich. We were doing publicity for the show as we took it on tour around Europe. And yes, I've looked like I've got really funny big pants on.
You have got funny big pants on, but it is still very recognisably you. This one I love.
Well, yes, you were talking earlier about the impact of our show. This is, I think, about season 4 or 5, and when the show had become hugely popular, and you can see there's a couple of paparazzi lenses.
Quite a lot
there.
of paparazzi,
Yeah.
and that's what I love. It looks like you're sort of hiding.
I am.
You are hiding.
Literally hiding. And I love that picture because they don't know I'm there.
Yeah.
So we were about to do a scene over in the village shop or at the church or whatever it was. And yeah, by then we had to have security and stuff because, people wanted to come and see what we were up to, and the paps wanted long lens pictures. So just to be able to stand just behind a wall knowing that all that was going on.
Yeah, it's the knowing smile that you're hiding and they don't know you're there. That's what I like about that. Okay, and this is now your life, of course, where you just hang out with Matt Damon and George Clooney. And
oh, yeah, well, he was, I have to say, the most generous of directors and company leaders, a true gent. And I couldn't believe it. My first day's filming on The Monuments Men was with the lovely Bob Balaban, and John Goodman, Matt Damon, Jean Dujardin, and then we said, okay, we've got Paddington here. So the reason for this is that when we finished Paddington 1, there was an edict went out from Studio Canal, the producer, saying, we'd love to see where Paddington goes this year. Will you send in photographs so we can keep the bear alive, as it were, while we're editing? And so I took Paddington everywhere with me, and I had him, I took him on chat shows, and they always cut it out. But I took Paddington. So I said to the Monument Men guys, can I have a picture with Paddington? So I used to, wherever I was in the world, I'd send pictures of Paddington back to Studio Canal. So they were rather pleased with that one.
Yeah, I bet they liked that. This is a lovely photo.
Oh, you got me. You got me. It's my darling dad. Yeah, that's my darling dad, who passed away just before the pandemic hit. We were able to give him a proper send-off in a church, unlike so many thousands of people who couldn't say goodbye to their beloved ones. He was 94, so he'd had an amazing innings. And dementia was the journey that he went on. He was a surgeon.
A urologist, right?
He was a urologist, yeah, waterworks. Yeah. Back in the day, there were 3 urology hospitals in London: St. Peter's, St. Paul's, and St. Philip's, known as the Pissing Apostles. And he used to cycle around town to see his patients. And he was a wonderful pianist, and as well as a skilled surgeon with his hands. So his ability to play music was with him to nearly the end. Your
dad thought you were going to be a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
What did he think of you making a full-time career of acting?
I don't know. He was incredibly supportive, as was my mum. But I think it was a world he found a little strange. But they were very good at bigging up behind one's back. I remember, as I say, my very first job was at Regent's Park at the Open Air Theatre in Midsummer Night's Dream. I had one line in Romeo and Juliet as well, with Ralph Fiennes playing Romeo. And I bumped into my godfather one afternoon. He said, "I gather you're playing Romeo at Regent's Park." I thought, I know where that story's come from.
Right?
I know. So yeah, no, he was. They were incredibly supportive. He thought that TV and film was a bit odd. Theatre was all right though. Theatre was legitimate.
But you'd had art. I mean, your dad played the piano, and you talk about how you felt lucky to have always had art, even in a sort of light touch way.
Yeah.
The arts.
Absolutely.
In your life growing up, and
completely.
They gave you that.
They did, and I'm immensely grateful to them because, you know, that there was a sort of background white noise of culture with a small c. They weren't highfalutin. We just went to every blooming country house and every museum and every art gallery, and I was so bored.
And you grumbled.
And I grumbled. All I wanted to do was get to the gift shop and buy a keyring. You know, that was the important thing. And I am so grateful to them because, as I say, I grew up with this, taking for granted that this cultural background was everyone's, but it's not. I realised how privileged I was, and particularly when I got into my teens and joined the National Youth Theatre and realised and started to meet kids from all over the country from different backgrounds to mine, and I realised how damn lucky I was to have been taken to the theatre, to concerts, to art galleries, and so that's why I'm passionate now about things like the National Youth Theatre and other arts organisations that allow a bigger outreach for young people, because it's what makes us human, the notion of culture, in whatever form, to use the imagination, to explore the imagination and the intellect, to try and understand each other as human beings. God knows we need understanding, and not everyone has access to it, and I'm passionate about enabling access.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hugh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cathy. I've enjoyed it, and I really enjoy being in this theatre as well.
Yeah, what a treat. How lucky are we?